Have you ever wondered why some women seem to linger in a man's mind long after she's gone? Why her absence becomes more haunting than her presence ever was? It isn't beauty, nor charm, nor the easy seduction of words that binds him. It is something far deeper, something that reaches the hidden chambers of his unconscious. Jung would say such a woman awakens the anima within him, the inner feminine he has long denied. She doesn't simply enter his life, she enters his psyche. And once there, she cannot be erased. These women move differently. Their power is not loud. It vibrates beneath the surface, like a silent earthquake that reshapes everything it touches. To the untrained eye, she may seem detached, almost unreachable. But her distance is not coldness, it is mastery. She understands that proximity does not create desire, space does. Every glance, every silence, every withdrawal is deliberate, not manipulative, but sovereign. She plays no games because she does not need to. Her energy itself is the game, and only the conscious can keep up. In a world obsessed with immediacy, she lives by an ancient rhythm. She does not chase, she attracts. She does not seek validation, she radiates worth. Men are drawn to her not because she offers comfort, but because she mirrors the part of them they've forgotten how to see, their own soul. To dream of her is to confront the void she illuminated. To long for her is to face one's own incompleteness. That is the secret. She is not a woman in the ordinary sense. She is a mirror of the divine feminine archetype that sleeps inside every man. Jung taught that what we do not make conscious will appear in our lives as fate. For many men, she is fate personified. Her calmness destabilizes them. Her silence exposes their noise. Her independence unmasks their dependency. She walks into his story like a quiet storm, not to belong, but to reveal. She is the mirror through which he sees his shadow, and that revelation terrifies him. He begins to crave her, not merely out of affection, but out of psychological necessity. She becomes the medicine he cannot digest, the reminder of what he lost in his pursuit of control. When a woman has done her shadow work, when she has confronted her own darkness and no longer seeks a man to rescue her from it, something changes in her aura. Men sense it before they can name it. Her gaze no longer begs to be seen, it chooses what to see. Her love no longer seeks to prove itself, it simply is. This is the woman who has transmuted pain into presence. She has sat with her loneliness long enough to turn it into gold. The alchemy of her solitude makes her unforgettable. You can feel her even in her absence. The mind tries to forget, but the soul does not. Because when a woman has reached this level of self-possession, she imprints through energy, not effort. Men remember not her words, but the silence between them. Not her touch, but the vibration of her being, the peace she carried into a room, the way she did not need to be understood to be powerful. She is mystery in its purest form, not because she hides, but because she reveals only what consciousness can handle. And this is where the psychology turns sacred. The feminine that is self-realized becomes the portal through which a man confronts his spiritual hunger. He doesn't just desire her body, he desires the wholeness she represents. But such desire cannot be fulfilled through possession. It demands transformation. He must evolve to meet her where she already stands. This is the unbearable truth most men refuse to face, that love is not a conquest, but a mirror. And the deeper he gazes into her, the more of himself he is forced to meet. Her allure is born from stillness, not strategy. While others perform love, she embodies it. While others cling, she releases. She understands the paradox. The more she lets go, the more he dreams. Because longing feeds on distance, and distance magnifies essence. She does not dim her light to keep him near. She shines so brightly that he must either rise or retreat. Either way, she remains untouchable, not because she is indifferent, but because she is free. In the quiet corridors of his mind, her image becomes a symbol of everything pure he once abandoned, of everything sacred he once doubted. She is not a ghost of romance, but an initiation. Jung would say she carries the energy of the self, the union of opposites, the wholeness that every soul seeks. That is why he dreams about her, not to relive the past, but to reclaim the part of himself she awakened. Some women are remembered for what they gave. But these women, these rare, self-aware women, are remembered for what they refuse to give away. Their restraint becomes a form of devotion to themselves, and in that devotion lies their eternal magnetism. The world calls it mystery. Jung would call it individuation. A man does not dream of a woman because she satisfies him. He dreams of her because she unsettles him. The women who live in men's dreams are not those who were easy to understand. They are the ones who demanded his evolution simply by being. Her silence exposes the places where his voice trembles. Her self-sufficiency reminds him of the dependence he hides behind strength. Her grace in solitude mirrors the chaos he avoids in himself. She is the mirror that does not flatter, and yet he cannot look away. Carl Jung wrote that every attraction contains a psychic purpose. The woman he cannot forget is rarely a coincidence. She is a summons. She calls him to the unhealed corners of his unconscious, to the wounds he has disguised as pride. In her presence, his ego falters because it cannot perform. She sees beyond the facade, not because she tries to, but because she lives from the level of soul. To a man who has built his identity on control, her perception is unbearable. She becomes both temptation and truth. For such a woman, love is not transaction, it is transformation. She will not play the role of the soothing mother, nor the submissive muse. She is the alchemist, the one who turns his projections into mirrors. Every argument, every silence, every withdrawal from her is an invitation for him to meet himself more deeply. And though he may resent her for it, his dreams betray the truth. He is still searching for the meaning she awakened. You, too, may have felt it. The strange exhaustion that comes from being too available, too understandable, too kind. You thought that giving more would make you more loved. But it is not abundance that creates longing. It is depth. The woman who haunts a man is not the one who offered everything. It is the one who held something sacred back. Not out of manipulation, but out of reverence for herself. She understands that mystery is not withholding. It is protection. She protects her energy because she knows it carries medicine, and medicine loses its potency when overexposed. The feminine that has learned this balance between openness and restraint becomes magnetic. Her attention feels like sunlight filtered through glass, warm but never blinding. When she listens, he feels seen by something ancient. When she withdraws, he feels the absence of meaning itself. This is not power in the conventional sense. It is the invisible authority of self-possession. She belongs to no one because she belongs to herself. And that ownership radiates an energy men instinctively respect, even when they cannot understand it. Jung would remind us that the feminine, when fully integrated, becomes a symbol of the soul's wholeness. This is why men dream. The dream is not about her body, it is about what her presence represented. In her, he glimpsed the possibility of becoming whole. He tasted the integration he has long avoided. She becomes the psychological bridge between his conscious persona and his unconscious truth. When she leaves, the bridge remains, and he cannot forget the crossing. There is a sacred cruelty in her detachment, not because she enjoys watching him suffer, but because she no longer rescues anyone from their shadow. She has walked through hers and emerged luminous. The woman who has met her darkness does not fear his. She simply refuses to drown in it. Her compassion is steady, but not enabling. She gives space, not saving. She gives understanding, not approval. And in doing so, she becomes unforgettable, not as a memory, but as an initiation he will never complete without his own awakening. Men will call her mysterious, but the mystery is not her. It is their own unconscious projected onto her form. They chase her ghost, thinking it's her they want, but what they really crave is what she revealed, their own depth. And because they cannot separate the two, she becomes myth. The mind translates psychology into romance, and the dream becomes the only place where the truth can still reach him. There is a kind of woman who does not age in memory. Time cannot erode what was never rooted in time. Her essence exists outside the linear story of love gained and lost. She is the archetype of the feminine eternal, the one who remains not because she stayed, but because she was seen. Every man who has met such a woman carries her like a faint vibration beneath his daily life, a reminder that the soul once spoke through human form. And for you, the woman listening to this, the lesson is not to perform these traits, but to become them. Not to manipulate longing, but to master presence, because the true feminine power lies not in how many hearts she captures, but in how deeply she has reclaimed her own. The woman who has done her inner work no longer needs to be remembered, but she is. There is something paradoxical about the woman who makes men dream about her forever. She is both a wound and a cure, a paradox that the rational mind cannot decode. Men, in their restless hunger for clarity, try to categorize her: lover, muse, witch, saint. But she slips through every label, for she does not live in language, she lives in energy. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." She becomes that fate, the living embodiment of everything a man denies until it appears before him as destiny. Her presence does not flatter the ego, it dismantles it. In her gaze, the posturing collapses. The man who once believed himself strong suddenly feels small, not because she diminishes him, but because her authenticity reveals how fragile his identity truly is. She doesn't argue or demand, she simply is, and that is enough to undo him. For the first time, he sees the difference between power and control. Power flows, control clings. She flows, he clings. And that is why she remains unforgettable, because through her, he tasted what freedom feels like, and it terrified him. When a woman lives in alignment with her truth, she becomes untamable. Her love is not a cage, but a current. To stand near her is to be pulled toward one's own depth, willingly or not. She does not instruct him to grow, she requires it by her very existence. This is the unconscious language of attraction, the soul recognizing the soul that refuses to shrink. But such women are not born, they are forged. They have walked through abandonment, silence, the long winters of the soul. They have sat with rejection without turning bitter, chosen solitude over false connection, and let loneliness carve wisdom into their bones. Out of this alchemy emerges not hardness, but radiance, a radiance that cannot be faked. You can feel it when she enters a room, the subtle certainty, the absence of needing anything from anyone. This is the energy men dream of, not because it offers pleasure, but because it offers peace. A man might call her mysterious, yet her mystery is nothing more than clarity. She knows what she feels, she knows what she wants, and she knows when to walk away without looking back. It is not coldness that allows her to detach, it is reverence. She honors her energy too much to spend it where it is not reciprocated. To the wounded masculine, this feels like punishment. To the conscious man, it feels like initiation. She does not test him, she reveals him. You too may know this pattern, the cycle where your giving became your prison, where your empathy became self-erasure. The difference between the forgotten woman and the unforgettable one lies not in beauty, but in boundaries. The former gives herself away in hopes of being remembered. The latter withholds herself in order to remain true. It is the refusal to betray her essence that makes her linger in his subconscious. Because somewhere, deep inside, he knows. She could have given him the world, and she chose herself instead. In the economy of the psyche, what we cannot possess, we idealize. This is the birthplace of the dream. He turns her into a symbol, a phantom of his own longing. But the irony is that she no longer dreams of him. Once she withdrew her projection, she found completion within. She no longer seeks to awaken him. She has awakened herself. It is at this moment when her energy detaches that his obsession begins. Jung called this the enantiodromia, the reversal of psychic energy. What was once pursued becomes the pursuer. What was once rejected becomes desired. When she loved him, he resisted. When she released him, he became restless. The masculine, when faced with true feminine detachment, feels an existential void. Her absence becomes an initiation into his own emptiness. And in that emptiness, he begins to dream. To dream of her is to revisit the part of himself he lost. The mind may frame it as missing her, but the soul knows it is missing itself. That is her secret power. She awakens in others the hunger for their own essence. She doesn't teach through words, she teaches through vibration. Her love is not instruction, but frequency. Even in separation, she remains a force that continues to shape him from afar. Every man she touches will either rise or retreat. Those who rise will learn to meet her in consciousness. Those who retreat will carry her as an ache that time cannot dull. But either way, she fulfills her purpose, not to be adored, but to awaken. And for the woman who understands this, there is no fear of loss. She knows that what is meant for her will recognize her energy and stay. What is not will dissolve. Her focus is not on keeping, but on becoming. And that becoming, unrushed, unbending, undiminished, is the reason she will always be remembered. To the unconscious man, she is confusion. To the awakened one, she is revelation. When she walks away, she doesn't take his peace, she takes his illusion. The illusion that love must always yield control, that connection must mean ownership. She leaves him naked before his own shadow. In her absence, he begins to hear the whispers of everything he's ignored, the ache of his childhood, the unmet needs, the walls he built to appear invulnerable. This is the true reason she cannot be forgotten, because forgetting her would mean forgetting the truth she revealed. There is something archetypal in her energy, something ancient. The Greeks called it psyche, the soul. Jung would call it the anima, the feminine within the masculine psyche. She is not simply a person. She is an event, a visitation from the sacred. Her presence disturbs the ordinary order of things, as all divine encounters do. Men dream of her not because she was perfect, but because she reintroduced them to mystery. In a world dulled by certainty and repetition, she made them feel alive again. She does not chase love because she understands what few dare to admit, that chasing reverses polarity. Desire lives in space, in uncertainty, in the untamed edges between souls. When she steps back, she doesn't close the door. She creates the distance in which longing can breathe. A man will often mistake this for disinterest, but it is actually devotion of the highest kind, the devotion to alignment, not attachment. She would rather lose him than lose herself. That quiet courage makes her unforgettable. When she loves, it is never from need, but from overflow. Her love does not plead, it blesses. It is the kind of love that leaves him different even after she's gone, because her affection was never about possession, it was about remembrance. She reminded him of what is real, what is tender beneath the armor. She reminded him of stillness. And when she departs, that stillness becomes unbearable because the world feels louder in her absence. In Jungian language, she represents the integration of the shadow, the union of the dark and the light, eros and logos, spirit and flesh. She has descended into her own underworld and returned whole. That wholeness cannot be imitated. It is felt. Men sense it before they understand it. It is what draws them, and it is what undoes them. Because deep down, every man is seeking a woman who has made peace with her chaos, who does not fear intensity, but channels it into wisdom. Her calmness is not the absence of storms, it is the mastery of them. And here lies the paradox of attraction. The more self-contained she becomes, the more expansive her influence grows. Her energy reaches places her words never could. She lives rent-free not in his mind, but in his evolution. Even years later, when he no longer recalls her face clearly, he will notice her fingerprints in his choices. The way he now values silence, the way he listens differently, the way he seeks depth instead of drama. She becomes an inner compass pointing him back toward authenticity. For the woman listening, this is your reminder. You were never meant to be easily understood. The world tries to soften women, to make them palatable, predictable, safe. But the feminine soul was not designed for containment. The moment you stop apologizing for your depth, you become magnetic. The moment you stop performing for love, love begins to find you naturally. You do not have to fight for attention when your energy is aligned with truth. There is also an element of sacred restraint in her. She does not over-explain, because she knows that words cannot convince someone to perceive depth they're not yet ready to see. She no longer argues for her value. She embodies it. This is what Jung meant when he said that individuation is the process of becoming who you truly are. She no longer lives through the eyes of others. She lives from her center. That inner alignment radiates as confidence so subtle, it's mistaken for mystery. In her detachment lies devotion. To herself, to truth, to the divine rhythm of timing. She trusts the flow of endings as much as beginnings. When a man leaves, she does not chase. She grieves with grace, then releases. Because she understands that what is lost on the surface is often gained in the soul. Her heartbreak becomes her initiation, and through it she ascends into a higher form of love, the kind that no longer clings. And it is precisely this transcendence that burns her image into the psyche of those she's known. Because while others love to be remembered, she loves to be free. And paradoxically, that freedom is what makes her unforgettable. The men who have touched her energy will never quite recover. They will meet new women, build new lives. But somewhere, deep in their unconscious, her frequency remains, a quiet echo reminding them of the standard of truth, presence, and grace. She doesn't haunt him with longing. She haunts him with awareness. She is the dream he cannot stop dreaming, because she awakened the part of him that dreams in the first place. She is the kind of woman who turns endings into initiations. To love her is to step into fire, to be burned clean of illusions. The man who meets her at this depth does not simply fall in love, he falls into himself. She is not a destination, but a passageway, a mirror through which the masculine confronts its own soul. Jung would call her the bridge between consciousness and the unconscious, the embodiment of the self that calls a man out of sleep. Her presence does not soothe, it awakens. An awakening, by its nature, is both beautiful and brutal. When she leaves, she does not vanish completely. She lingers in the air like the scent of something sacred. Her energy becomes a phantom that follows him, not to torment, but to remind. It whispers through his moments of stillness, through the quiet hours before dawn when the ego's armor falls away. She becomes the face he sees when he is finally honest with himself. Not because she was perfect, but because she was real. You see, her power does not come from being desired. It comes from being known and still remaining free. That freedom is her magnetism. She can be deeply connected and yet untouched by dependency. She can love without losing herself, desire without drowning. The modern world rarely recognizes this kind of strength because it cannot commodify it. But men feel it instinctively. The presence of a woman who needs nothing is intoxicating. It disorients them. It makes them question everything they thought they understood about love. This is what makes her unforgettable. She redefines what love means. To him, she was not a comfort, but a compass. Through her, he discovered that love is not about possession, but resonance. That desire, when purified, becomes devotion. That to hold someone lightly is the only way to truly hold them at all. She didn't tell him these truths. She embodied them. And embodiment is more powerful than instruction. It bypasses the intellect and imprints directly into the psyche. There are moments in every man's journey when the memory of such a woman returns, not as nostalgia, but as guidance. When he feels lost, he remembers her silence. When he is tempted to settle, he recalls her standards. When he forgets his own soul, he dreams of the woman who mirrored it. This is the hidden purpose of her presence. She becomes the inner teacher his ego resisted. She leaves, but she leaves something behind, his initiation into consciousness. But the woman who carries this archetype does not hold grudges, nor does she wait for apologies that never come. Her path is forward, always forward. She has learned that not every man she touches will be able to meet her. Some will romanticize her, some will resent her, some will mythologize her into a saint or a sinner, yet none will forget. Her role in their lives was never to be understood. It was to be remembered. And memory is its own form of transformation. For the feminine who has done her work, life becomes less about who stays and more about what grows. She no longer asks, will he come back? But rather, what in me has awakened? She no longer seeks closure from another, because she has learned that closure is simply the soul returning to itself. The dream of being chosen dissolves, and in its place arises a far greater truth. She is the chooser. To exist at this level of self-awareness is not arrogance. It is devotion to authenticity. She has faced her loneliness and found it holy. She has confronted her longing and transmuted it into creation. This is what Jung meant when he said that individuation is the process by which a person becomes what they are meant to be. She no longer mirrors the world. She becomes the mirror in which the world sees its own hunger. And for those who have looked into her eyes, that reflection never fades. You, the woman hearing this, are not meant to be a memory in someone else's unfinished story. You are meant to be the story itself, the one who embodies wholeness, who turns heartbreak into illumination. Your mystery does not need explaining. Your silence does not need defending. Your power is not in how much you are pursued, but in how little you are swayed. The world teaches women to fear being too much. But the truth is that only those who have not met themselves will find you overwhelming. And to the man who once dreamed of her, perhaps the greatest lesson lies here. She was never yours to keep. She was yours to awaken by. Her leaving was not loss, it was liberation. Through her, you met the threshold of your own becoming. And one day, when your ego dissolves into humility, you will understand. She did not abandon you. She set you free. And that is why the women who have reached this level of spiritual and psychological sovereignty are remembered, not as lovers, but as symbols. symbols of the divine feminine that refuses to be contained, symbols of love that transcends form. They do not remain in dreams because they crave remembrance. They remain because they became archetype. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.